As the world around us continues to change, Florida Blue remains focused on our commitment to help keep Florida at its healthiest. With Medicare Advantage HMO plans that received Medicare's highest rating, 5 out of 5 stars. And you can switch today. No need to wait for the annual enrollment period. So call or visit online now. It starts with the benefit of $0 monthly plan premiums. But staying healthy is now more important than ever. So Florida Blue Medicare's 5 stars go even further. With enhanced benefits like $0 outpatient mental health services, $0 primary care telehealth available 24/7, 90-day prescription supply by mail, and free support from neighborhood nurses. All part of our 5-star commitment to you. So call 866-308-6110 and get the 5-star rated Medicare HMO plan that's right for you. Our experts are standing by. Call and switch today.
Welcome everyone to the March segment of the Blue Seat, sponsored by Florida Blue. We're really excited about this month's subject matter, which I hope that you notice that it's about collaboration. In fact, the title of the segment is Collaboration, How to Succeed, Feed, and Lead in a Crisis. And who better to help us through this subject this month other than Monique Ellsworth. She is the CEO of Second Harvest of the Big Bend. Welcome, Monique.
Thank you so much. That was such a kind introduction.
Well, it gets better. For those of you who are not familiar with Monique, let me tell you a little bit about this amazing woman. First of all, Second Harvest of the Big Bend serves 11 counties. So you think you may have it bad if you've got one county. Boy, can you imagine 11 counties to be responsible for? But Monique is a graduate of FSU with her master's in social work. And then prior to Second Harvest, in case you weren't familiar with Monique, she served as the executive director of CESC, which I just learned was Connecting Everyone with Second Chances. So she was the executive director there for quite a long time. How long were you there, Monique, by the way?
I started at CESC before it actually turned into CESC, back when it was the Renaissance Community Center in 2012. So I was there and left in 2019. So I was there for a long time.
Oh my God, like when you were 10 years old. Well,
right. I had to ride my bicycle there before I got a driver's license.
Right. Well, just in case some of you are not familiar with CESC, it is a nonprofit organization that operates a homeless shelter, 2 housing programs, which also includes the tiny house complex, a healthcare and a dental clinic. And in 2020, Monique was named as one of the 25 women you need to know, the Tallahassee Democrat, as well as, and more importantly, she received the Emmy Award for Collaborator of the Year. So again, Monique, we're glad to have you in the Blue Seat, and definitely want to start off with the mission of Second Harvest of the Big Bend. Tell us, what's the mission?
So our mission is to feed the hungry in the Big Bend region. And we do that not only by providing food to those individuals, but taking an extra step to make sure that we're educating the community on the needs that exist throughout our service area, and then also engaging the community in that response. So education, engagement, and feeding.
Oh, what a big mission. And in the midst of a pandemic, I would only imagine your workload is pretty heavy right now.
We have had to increase. I think that what we've had to do is figure out what is our new a stamina to keep up with the work as it comes at us. And thankfully, I think that we have found a pretty good pace at which we can work and still do quality service to our community. But yeah, big lift, amazing team here of people that are really committed to the mission. So I couldn't be more blessed.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the team makes a big difference. And one thing I wanted to ask you too is, when did you start at Second Harvest? Because I think we've got like a time frame here when we look at when you started and when the pandemic hit. So when did you start?
At the very end of October. So I had the full month of November, December. So a great introduction because of how much fundraising we were doing and wonderful events to go to, so I could kind of get acclimated. And then January was again through kind of like the cold season and people, us trying to figure out like, how do we start preparing for summer, because really we're starting our preparation for hurricane season now. So that was really the big buzz in January and February, like, okay, we need to get ready for hurricane season. And I'm like, all right, how do we do that? And then a pandemic. And I'm like, were we ready for the pandemic?
Because I'm hearing you correctly, you started roughly October, November of 2019. You had roughly about 3 months of onboarding before a global pandemic hit.
Yes.
What a transition, which was actually going to be my next question. And that's why I was thinking, wait a minute, this timeline is very interesting. So how was it transitioning from housing the homeless to now feeding the hungry?
Um, so I think that my passion has probably always lied with advocating for individuals who are under-resourced and finding ways that a community can come together and connect our neighbors with the services that exist here locally. So I think going from housing insecurity to food insecurity was, although that was a lane change, it still felt like it's that heart work. And it also provided an opportunity to collaborate with new, or in my case, a lot of existing contacts and essentially friends that I have in the community who all are rowing in the same direction and trying to achieve the same general goals of serving the underserved and connecting people with resources they need. So in theory, it was going to be easy, but I also had never transitioned jobs. So to move from CESC and where I was, and I mentioned how long I was there. I was very familiar with the work we were doing and with how we were trying to do that work and with what tools we did that work. So learning an entirely new system that a lot of it was related to logistics and having a fleet of trucks. And we drive over 100,000 miles a year in service to our service area. That was all really new. But I also didn't get to start small. I had to step right into this particular position, and we're, as an organization, and like most nonprofits, we're already flying 100 miles an hour. So it was very quickly stepping in and trying to understand exactly like what we do, how do we do it, and then and how can I educate myself as quickly as possible to start making recommended adjustments to our process to hopefully improve it or to re-engage people who might be able to help us further our mission. So a lot of it was like being quiet and just listening and learning from my team, and then figuring out how I can pull together the tools that I came with to emphasize the strengths that already exist here.
I think, I mean, you already said one of the biggest things that you already had some collaborative partners that you are used to already working with. And, so I'm curious as to what were some of the successes that you saw like pretty immediate when you transitioned over? Because collaboration is critical. So when you think about it, again, what were some of like your immediate successes?
Well, we, coming from the housing world, and working with nonprofit leaders who oversaw housing programs, that was kind of like that was the easiest place for me to start focusing my attention, was like, okay, how can we deepen our impact with our housing providers? How can we make it easier for our housing providers to serve the clients that they have in their programs? Can we start doing distributions at the Tallahassee Housing Authority locations directly inside of those apartment program sites? So a lot of it was calling people that I had worked with alongside of when I was in the housing world to figure out, what can I do now that I have the food resources? How can I bolster the work that you're currently doing in the housing field? So I think that was probably where I began to plug myself in immediately. And that work really was helpful when the pandemic hit, because it was going directly to where people live to try and bring food to those locations. Eventually became, what our focus and goal was, shortly after we went through the summer during our response and figured out what process might work better to serve people who were housed.
And so I'm curious, to some, this might be an obvious answer, but the transition, well, I won't say transition because you have to be prepared for both situations, but how has policies and procedures changed from being hit with a hurricane to having a global pandemic?
So I haven't been here yet during a hurricane, and like I'm knocking on all of the wood in my office that I don't get that experience this year. But when a hurricane comes, it's isolated. Like one community is impacted, or maybe like a number of small communities, but it's a very isolated event. And what's wonderful about the food banking system is that we all work really closely together. I actually sit on the board of Feeding Florida, and it's all of the food banks across our entire state. And every Tuesday morning, our day starts with a call together just so that we can walk through what hurdles are we all overcoming, what are we working on, what programs are flourishing in our communities. Can I adopt something that another CEO has implemented at their food bank and bring it to Tallahassee? So we as a community of food bankers, we're collaborative. And so when a hurricane hits, it's immediately all hands on deck in service to that location. But the pandemic was like a category 5 that was hitting every single city across America. And there was no resource sharing between communities. There was nothing that I could send someone else because we were exhausting all of our local resources to serve our service area. So during a hurricane, we might get food and water and trucks and administrative staff and driving staff actually come to our location and would help with our response. That's what we saw with Michael, for example. Food banks across Florida and Louisiana and Georgia came to our community to help with the response here after Hurricane Michael. But during the pandemic, and especially the initial response to the pandemic, it was every food bank for themselves, trying to figure out what do we do with the resources that we have on hand. Very different.
Very, very different. And, I think that's another interesting dynamic as well, too. With Second Harvest, you have Feeding America, or you have other partners within your network that you automatically can go to, versus CESC is grassroots, home-based nonprofit organization. So maybe there's just that certain level of support. I mean, can you speak on that a little bit too? Because there is a difference.
And actually that was something that I wasn't prepared for, was how collaborative and supportive this particular, like the food banking community is. So yeah, at CESC, a lot of what we did is we tried to learn from other communities. So it was cold calling people, the Sulzbacher Center over in Jacksonville, or reaching out to Grace Marketplace in Gainesville to learn what they're doing. But there wasn't an established system where there was idea sharing and people openly talking about mistakes they made, and helping each other not make the same mistakes. Like, I already did that, don't need to try it. Here's my recommendation. And that's what we have in the food banking system, is that everyone is a partner to each other, and that's on our state association level or the national groups. Feeding America is incredible. I was on an 1.5-hour conference call with my direct contact. Each CEO has a engagement member coordinator who connects you with like the mothership, and helps you, think through obstacles that your food bank might be facing, or think critically about policy changes that might be helpful, learn about funding opportunities that exist. So I get support, and through me, like, our entire service area gets support because of the food bank's relationship with Feeding America and participating in Feeding Florida. And it comes in a number of ways, not only learning about new initiatives that we can implement here, but also having access to enormous opportunities for resources, relationships. For example, recently we got to have a conference call with the owner of Subaru, like the national, like the guy that owns Subaru was on a call, and the president of Feeding America has developed a really close relationship with him. And he was able to get on there and talk about what participating in hunger action and feeding people means to him and means to his company, and creating a partnership for the organization as a whole, so that we have actually developed a really close relationship with our Subaru here in town and the Proctor family. And so we've been able to kind of like mimic what's happening on a national level and finding those local connections so that we can mirror what's happening across America.
And I think that's fantastic. Again, the difference of what you receive if you're a part of a national network versus, again, a grassroots, homegrown nonprofit. But I think, again, that's a great spot where any can help fill in. If you happen to be a local grassroots nonprofit, you're not alone. You are still a part of a big network, and we can help you with making those connections. So speaking of collaboration, we would love to dream and think that collaboration is streamlined and easy. But what are some of the barriers that maybe you have seen, not within your internal network with the feeding and the pantry communities, But, you know, outside of that, when you're looking at collaborating outside, what are maybe some of the barriers that you face with trying to build meaningful collaborations?
Um, I would say that historically, um, problems are like, I guess philosophically speaking, I believe that proximity is a problem. I think that if people aren't close to an issue, they don't care about it. If they can't touch it or see it or smell it, they don't feel connected to it and don't feel any responsibility to overcoming a problem. The pandemic came with it a many silver linings to what happened across America this past year, and one of those has been the ability for social issues to be brought to light, brought center stage on a national conversation and into the living rooms in households across America. No one can escape the impacts that families have experienced. And even if the family watching that news report or reading about it in the newspaper or talking about it with friends, even if that person didn't have wasn't negatively impacted by the ripple effect of COVID-19, they certainly know someone who has been. So I think that what's happened for us nationally and then here on a local level is the proximity between the issues that we fight for and the people who we want to engage and educate has shrunk. And so now we have a wonderful opportunity to continue that dialogue on a local level with our community that invites people to participate in the resolution to problems that we see here locally.
Well, I'm curious too, again, we're talking about locally and being a leader, your staff is critical. And we started the conversation having a great team on board. So how has this pandemic and the work that you're doing at Second Harvest, how has it impacted and affected your team and your staff?
Um, I think that a number of things have happened. One is that Second Harvest already, like when I walked in the door, we were full of just passion-driven heart workers. That they were here for the mission. They believed in what they were doing, and they saw the impact that they could have at their job in whatever position they had. I think that COVID-19 and the pandemic and our response has probably instilled a lot of pride in our team and feeling good about the ways that we can intervene and engage and serve. But it's also been exhausting. The team I am blessed to work beside every day, work every day. 6 days a week, we are on the road, we are packing trucks, we are sourcing food, we are sorting food, we are leading volunteers, we are in the community having meaningful dialogue with either donors or possible stakeholders and partner agencies who might be interested in helping us do our work in their neighborhood. It's tireless effort, and we are also fully complete humans that were experiencing this pandemic on a personal level also. And I think that was something that thankfully my board recognized and saw that. And I and our leadership team recognized and saw that. And so we were able to quickly institute pretty regular mental health days, an extra one that could be used every single month for staff so that they could take time away and be with family or just re-energize, so that we could make sure that our staff had the best opportunity to come to work and be able to do what we do day in and day out, and then leave work and go home and manage the impact of COVID-19 on their family. I mean, our staff still had children that were, no longer in school and working from home, or spouses that were furloughed or lost their jobs entirely, family members that have died from the disease. That all happened within like our work family. And so it was keeping mindful of the fact that every person on this team has a whole family and a whole set of responsibilities outside of the work they do to serve our community. And we really care about one another. And I think that the depth of our care for each other was something that was really solidified during this.
Yeah, and that's tough. I mean, when your team is impacted by something like that, and it impacts people in different ways. I mean, I think it's just brilliant that, of course, you'll recognize the mental health days and allotting the time for that as one method of being able to show you care and show your support. It's so critical. What are some of the other things that maybe y'all have done to keep your team inspired and encouraged in the midst of all of this? They are already very passionate about what they do, but how do you keep that momentum and keep that encouragement up and going?
I think that so we've been able to do a few things. One is that we have just such incredible members of our community that care deeply about not only the work that our staff does, but our staff in general. So an example is Jerry with Jerry's Cafe. Last week, she came in and she provided a free lunch to every staff member. And we were the food bank, but our community is feeding us. And that example happened multiple times. Lots of different restaurateurs in town chose to come in and feed our team, which was really incredible. And it helped our team feel like they were part of that first responder group that was getting recognized and see themselves as part of the essential workforce that was serving during the lockdown portion of COVID-19. But then we also have done a lot of work when we had a big transition in the way that we responded to COVID-19. Initially, what we did was these big mega distributions, is what we called them. And we chose locations that were centrally located in Tallahassee, where we could attract the most people to the biggest parking lot we could find. And so people saw that on the news a lot. We were at TCC very regularly at a bunch of different schools that had large parking lots. We were over at the Civic Center. We've been at the mall. But we took time to investigate and research what the needs were of the people that were attending those distributions, and really wanted to know how far were they having to drive? Where were the people that we were serving, where were they coming from? Because we needed to not ask someone who's under-resourced and struggling to come to us on when it's convenient for Second Harvest. And I think this goes for all nonprofits. We need to go to where our client is when it's convenient for them. So we learned where our clients were coming to us from, and our model shifted with that knowledge, and it allowed us to start doing these hyper-focused micro distributions inside of neighborhoods that were sometimes hard to reach, sometimes very small, but these very specific outreach efforts really helped our team see a different way that we were impacting. Our drivers got to go out and do direct distributions directly to these small neighborhoods and see people face to face. We did a big distribution as an entire team, and every member, like from our finance department and our development team, our warehousing, our program staff, everyone was out there putting food in cars, and we all got to see firsthand what little piece that we might have to the entire system, what it looks like at the end, and why, every day that might be hard, why it's worth doing that because of, the face you can remember in the car, the person that said thank you, like the family you got the chance to serve, the people who you got to take one thing off of their mind. If they're worried about where to get food, maybe we just took that piece of stress off their plate. And I think stories like that, hearing from our recipients, getting the chance to go out and engage them personally, that has fueled our team.
That's beautiful. I think it's a great way, of course, board members, volunteers, just across the board, for everyone to actually play a role and give back makes it so obvious. And I think that's phenomenal. If someone is watching this, Monique, and they're interested in collaborating with Second Harvest, what would you recommend? Like, what are you looking for in a meaningful collaborative relationship if you were to partner with someone? What does that look like?
So something like a conversation that I'm having right now with like some of my like close social service friends is, and again, like philosophical a little bit, but this idea that as a food bank, our responsibility shouldn't be to feed the line, the idea, this line of people needing food, to move from feeding the line to ending the line. And by simply giving food, we're not ending the line, we're feeding the line. And so what a food bank can do, and what we feel charged to do, is to leverage the relationships that we have in our community to have a more holistic response to the neighborhoods that we're serving. So I mentioned the transition we had from these mega distributions down to these micro distributions. And a collaborative effort that we're beginning to explore and undertake right now is how can we, and also like this thought that we don't need to have brick and mortar locations that we require recipients of our services to come to, rather we should go to them because we know where they are. So this idea kind of came, I was thinking of like food truck Thursday, and like, I can't wait till that's a thing again. But we got to go to one location and a whole variety of trucks were awaiting us. And how wonderful would it be if all of those trucks were social services and they went to a neighborhood that was underserved? And so we're working on right now how to mobilize a number of nonprofits here locally so that we can do these this micro work or work on a micro level inside of neighborhoods, responding directly to what those neighborhoods are saying that they need. So also not coming up with what they need on our own, going to them and saying, what is it that you need? And then having a menu of services available that they can choose from. And then we go and provide just that. We got a taste of this with the City of Tallahassee, their neighborhood association, neighborhood affairs team. We started piggybacking on all of their distributions and activities that they were doing on a neighborhood level over the summer, and we're continuing that. And so now we're trying to pull together, and we have successfully kind of secured a couple people that are going to collaborate with us. We're going to have Career Source and Jim McShane that's going to help with some employment focused work. We're looking at DCF so that we can help people get connected to benefits. We'll have neighborhood health fair that's going to help people immediately be seen for medical things that they might have. We're working on getting some kind of legal service that could be out there as well, but going into neighborhoods and bringing the needs that neighborhood has directly to their street. And that's something I'm really excited about, because instead of like having a one-stop shop, a brick and mortar location that people must come to, what if we just went to them?
Absolutely love the idea, Monique. It's wonderful. And of course, if there's anything that we can do to assist with helping facilitate some of those conversations with potential partners, I'm thinking automatically of several different nonprofits who would love the opportunity to jump on board with the opportunity like that. So we can definitely connect a little bit later, because I think it's just a great opportunity. And I'm sure a lot of them have had the same maybe idea, but just don't have the bandwidth, and would love the collaboration and the opportunity. So I'm really curious as to what have you learned about yourself in the midst of this global pandemic? What have you learned about yourself? I mean, there are some wonderful things that people are discovering about themselves in the midst of having either been quarantined or having to be on lockdown, or just the entire thing in general. And I know that you're a very active person. You enjoy running and outdoors and all that kind of great stuff. But, what are a couple of things that you've learned about yourself in the midst of all of this?
I guess personally, I think I've learned keep it small and keep it simple. That I can't be the best at everything, but I can try really hard to prioritize and be good at the things that I prioritize. A gift of 2020 for me was that the volume was turned down. The constant innate desire that I have always had to like be at the events and to go and to network and to see what relationships can I leverage to better serve the issue that I'm looking to resolve with my team. Like I loved that. But in a lot of respects, it's a distraction. It's a distraction from self-care. It can be a distraction from the relationships that are really important and should be nurtured. And there's only so many hours in the day. And this past year, I was not one of the people that went through the pandemic and like picked up a new skill. I don't know how to macrame. I can't cross stitch. I did not grow a butterfly. I loved that people were doing that. And I too wish that I could have like created bread from like a starter kit. I have never worked harder in my life. This was like the hardest year. But I got the chance to focus on some things that were going to keep me healthy and keep me fed spiritually and emotionally. And the volume being turned down really helped me center myself, and it was necessary. I can't imagine having gone through something with the pressures, or still going through something with the pressures that the pandemic brings, while still being expected to participate at the level that many of us participate locally. It was great that I could focus my attention on my work here and then on my personal well-being. So that was one thing. And then also, I think that something that I recognized and valued, but really the importance of it came to light, is that your tribe, the people you keep around you, are essential. And making sure that you have the best possible team supporting you, holding you accountable, helping you grow, picking you up, encouraging you. I would be lost without the people in my life. And this last year, I couldn't have done what we did. I couldn't have, without the people that were there to support me, and the people who I got blessed to be a part of their support system and support them. I think that I just learned to keep it small and keep it simple and stay focused on the things that really matter.
Wow. That's great advice and definitely wonderful words of wisdom. I'm curious too, I forgot to mention that you've got a couple of positions that you're looking to fill at Second Harvest. Can you share with our viewers a little bit about what's going on over at Second Harvest, because you're looking to expand your team?
Yeah, so we got an excellent grant that is giving us the chance to build our programs team out. And so it's a child nutrition coordinator position that we're adding to our team. And really the goal of that particular staff person is to help deepen the relationships that we have with our current partner agencies who act on our child nutrition programs, but then also expand that. So like improve what we already have, and then make our impact and the breadth and depth of that service greater. So not only here in Leon County, but in all the counties that we serve. So that's an expansion, which is really exciting. And then our wonderful COO, Dave Cox, he's been with the food bank for 10 years, back-breaking work, great vision for what we've needed, overcoming like the hurdles of so many natural disasters over the last few years, moving Second Harvest from the 4-Point location to here. Like, there are community angels, and Dave Cox is one of those. I'm so lucky that I've been able to work alongside of him, but he's retiring. I think the pandemic was enough, and he's retiring in July. So we've just closed the application pool for the COO position. And so starting Thursday, we're going to be going through those applications to start identifying the next person we're going to bring in and help Second Harvest kind of like grow to the next food bank, the next iteration of what we will be. And then of course we have driving positions that are open right now also, and the need for compassionate CDL drivers that really want mission work that can help be the face of the organization. Because honestly, our driving team is those are the most visible staff members that we have out on the road every day working with our partner agencies. So lots of opportunities to join the team.
Right, definitely. Well, shout out to Dave and happy retirement to him, and best of luck on finding the additional support that you definitely need over at Second Harvest and adding to the team. Monique, as always, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for being always transparent and sharing everything in the life of Second Harvest and being a leader with the organization. Again, thank you so much to Florida Blue for being our sponsor for the Blue Seat. And we are so excited to have Second Harvest as a member of NE, and look forward to continuing to support you and your team in whatever way possible. Thank you, Monique.
Thanks, Felina.